Black Myth Wukong, released August of 2024. Available on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC platforms. Retailing for $59.99. Black Myth Wukong is a Souls-like, or at the very least is closer to being one than any other genre. You play as the Destined One, a monkey raised on the tales of Wukong. You are seeking 6 relics that represent the 6 senses of Wukong, which will allow him to be revived. This game's story takes place after the journey to the West, and the game very much assumes you're familiar with that novel. And if you are completely unfamiliar with it, very little of what's going on is going to make any sense to you, as things will be referenced with no explanation, characters will show up with no introduction, and in general, there's going to be a lot here that you will not have context for. Now, if you are familiar with the Journey to the West, the story here is quite interesting, and worth getting invested in. Now, on the other hand, if you aren't familiar with the source material, and don't feel like reading it, you can still enjoy this game based on gameplay alone. As the game starts, you are the Destined One. You're a monkey with a staff. You can do light and heavy attacks, and your main means of defense is by dodging. As the game goes on, you'll learn you have 3 stances to use with your staff: Smash, Pillar, and Thrust. Smash is what you start the game with, and I found it to be the most useful as the game went on. However, both Pillar and Thrust have their uses, as certain enemies and even bosses can be easier to deal with the right Pillar or Thrust moves. And yes, your only weapons are staffs. Technically, they're all the same staff that you modify in various ways. And yes, different variations of your staff have different properties, with some having a benefit for one stance or another. In addition to your staff, you also have armor. Armor sets are unlocked as you progress the story, and all sets of armor have some manner of set bonus. At first, every new armor set will provide better protection, but at about the midway point of the game, you get the ability to upgrade your armor sets. So if you liked the bonuses from a very early set with low protection value, a few upgrades will make it just as strong as a later game set. Like many Souls-like games, you have limited healing items. In this game, it's a gourd filled with alcohol. You take a hit off it to heal, but there are many different gourds you can get, some of which can be upgraded, and there are different alcohols you can put in your gourd, all of which have different properties, and there are things you can add into your gourd to attain even more properties. This means that your gourd is for far more than just healing, as it can grant you resistances when you take a sip, increase your attack power, restore your magic, or any number of other things. In addition to your gourd, there are other items you can take with you, though you can only have access to a small number of items at any given time. The last tools at your disposal are magic and spirits. Spirits don't use the same bar as your magic, but their effect is very similar. You will encounter strong enemies, some of which are even optional bosses. After you defeat them, you may collect their spirit. You can then equip one of their spirits, which oftentimes give you a bonus to one stat or another, and you can summon spirits to usually do an attack, and they take many different forms. Sometimes the attack they do is worth keeping them around, other times the bonus they grant is just good enough to keep it on you. These are very much situational, and can be upgraded. Spells, on the other hand, are trickled to you very slowly over the course of the game. They have fairly long cooldown times, and all require a certain amount of magic. And their cooldown times are such that during most boss fights you'll only be able to cast any given spell maybe twice. But these have many different effects. You can immobilize targets, turn yourself to stone, summon a small squad of clones of yourself to fight, and all of the spells can be upgraded. There is one spell I want to talk about in particular. It allows you to change your form, and your alternate form lasts until you run out of health or you run out of time. And your transformation's health is separate from your main health. And yes, there are different forms to acquire with this spell, and each of these alternate forms have different movesets and can have different elemental properties and whatnot. And having the right alternate form to use during a boss can make things so much easier. The game itself is broken up into different chapters, Each chapter has its own location, and each chapter ends with a boss fight and you attaining one of the relics. But each chapter also has a hidden area and other optional content. There's usually something specific you need to do to unlock the hidden part, but if you're exploring thoroughly, you should be able to figure it out. Each relic you get has 3 upgrades it can offer you, but you can only pick one, and you cannot change which one you picked. But the good news is you don't need to pick your upgrade immediately, so take time and think about it, because you're stuck with whatever you pick from that relic. Now, between chapters, this game rewards you with animated cutscenes. And each of these cutscenes is actually animated in a different style, and these are reflective of what was happening in that chapter. And honestly, these would be worth watching by themselves without the game attached. So is Black Myth Wukong worth your time and money? Well, I am a bit biased, as I am a big fan of The Journey to the West, and this game is essentially a sequel to that story. A sequel that retreads a lot of the same ground, but still technically a sequel. But even without that, I do think this game is strong enough to justify purchasing. Each of the game's chapters is fairly vast. Every boss fight provides its own challenge, and each chapter does have a lot of optional content to do, finding a hidden area, and many optional bosses that are oftentimes just off the beaten path. While the game does limit you to only having staffs as weapons, there is still a lot of variety in the combat with the different stances, the variety of spirits and spells, and of course the various transformations. The game can be a little grindy at times, as every time you level up, you get 1 point. You can put that 1 point into a physical ability or into one of your spells. And a lot of upgrades cost more than 1 point. And if you're looking to upgrade your staff or your armor, that will require you to get items to actually do the upgrade. Some of these are guaranteed to drop off bosses. Others are just drops off of enemies that you'll have to grind for. It is a little annoying that a central hub area doesn't unlock till fairly deep in the game. So before that point, you'll have to remember where certain NPCs are at to do certain things, like upgrade your gourds and wine. It's a fairly minor issue, but I did find it annoying. This is an excellent Souls-like that is definitely worth its $60 price tag. I do recommend that you familiarize yourself with the Journey to the West before playing, but that is ultimately up to you. At the very least, you might want to look up a Cliff Notes on it. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.